Well, US President Donald Trump declares his peace deal will bring the dawn of a new Middle East after the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain signed historic deals with Israel intended to formalise better diplomatic relations. And the race to the White House ramps up as the president faces voters in the battleground states of Pennsylvania and others. Joining me now is global futurist and media commentator in national and foreign affairs, Keith Suter. Great to see you tonight, Keith. Let's talk about this deal, this particular deal that's been struck between the Middle East and of course, Israel, and obviously Trump heavily involved. Is this the sort of deal that once again sort of portrays Trump as an international statesman? We saw last week that he's been nominated for, of course, the Nobel Peace Prize. Where does this resonate with voters 7 weeks out from an election in the United States?
I'm not sure that it's actually going to do much good for him at the moment. It'll certainly reinforce the support that he enjoys amongst conservative Christians. The conservative Christians are an important part of his base. His base has never gone beyond 50% of American voters. So he's always had a small base, but it's enthusiastic, it's loyal, and he is rewarding his Christian supporters by saying that he's building on the initiative. He's already moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now, this is another stage of improving relations between Israel and two of the smaller Arab states. So from that point of view, you can say I'm sort of keeping in with those conservative Christian voters. I think the Jewish voters traditionally vote Democrat. No matter who's in the White House, they vote Democrat. I'm not sure he's going to win over too many of the Jewish voters, other than those he's already got as part of his group. And I think, though, for many Americans who are concerned about the coronavirus crisis, etc., they're more worried about more domestic focus issues. So, yes, it's good for Trump, but it's not going to be the clincher that he needs to win in November. He may still win in November, by the way. My view is that it's wrong for some commentators to write him off because Biden is doing so well in the opinion polls. Biden is presiding over a split party. The risk that he runs, a lot of people won't bother to vote in November, whereas, as I say, Trump has got solid support, minority support, but solid. So that might get him over the line in November.
Keith, what did you make of this poll which suggested that Trump was less favourable to international people, international voters, than Xi Jinping and Putin, that the popularity, if you like, of Trump was the lowest among international citizens for the last 2 decades?
Yes, I think that Trump's problem is that he's been very erratic while he's been in the White House. Somebody ought to remove that Twitter account from him, and he should go back to doing a standard number of media conferences and leave it at that. There are a lot of people who are just basically fed up with Trump because he is so erratic. Remember, at the beginning of the year, he was highly critical, he was highly supportive of China's work over the coronavirus. Now, of course, he is using the Wuhan, the Chinese virus, as part of his re-election strategy. So I can imagine there would be a lot of people who are just simply saying, at least with President Xi, you know where you stand. And you also know where you stand with Putin. He's out to get you, but at least you know where you stand. With Trump, it's very difficult because he's forever changing his mind and has not really achieved too many foreign policy successes. North Korea has remained a failure, but at the same time, he hasn't made any failures in international affairs. You know, Bush and Obama invaded other countries and they were disasters. Trump, to his credit, has not invaded any other country in his last 3.5 years in office. So that certainly will say Trump is saying, I'm not bringing the Americans back home in body bags, and that will certainly resonate with his base.
Keith, what about the ongoing tensions with China? You mentioned Xi Jinping, very, very hairy-chested at the moment. We've seen sanctions around trade. We've seen accusations that we've, mishandled the relationship, that diplomacy has gone out the window. Where's this going to finish?
I think we're in a new Cold War, or we're sliding towards it. On the one hand, as I've already indicated, Trump has been sometimes very critical of China, sometimes quite supportive. He likes strong leaders. The problem for the United States is that previous administrations, particularly the Clinton administration, Bush, signed up for all these free trade deals, and so many jobs have now gone to China. So there is that residual tension between the United States and China over so-called free trade. It's not fair, but it's free trade. Particularly if you're a rich American, you're making more money out of China. At the same time, in China, there's also been a change in attitude under President Xi. So if you look back at the reforms that began 40 years ago, the view was then from Deng Xiaoping is that China will emerge very slowly onto the global scene. It's not going to create waves. PRC, People's Republic of China, also means please remain calm. And that has continued over the decades. President Xi, by contrast, is now indulging in what's called wolf diplomacy. The Wolf series of movies in China consists of young Chinese warriors saving the world rather than Hollywood warriors saving the world. And China is now becoming much more in your face. And so we're seeing a move away also. So you've got the Americans becoming more aggressive, but you've also got the Chinese becoming much more aggressive. And there is this what's called the Thucydides trap. So Thucydides wrote about Athens and Sparta and the conflict which they had 2,000 years ago. Professor Graham Allison of Harvard has talked about the way in which you've got an established great power challenged by a rivaling emerging power. He's looked at the last 500 years of Western history. Of those 16 struggles, the most recent between England and Germany, of those 16 struggles, 12 have resulted in conflict. And so the worry that we've got is that we have the United States as an established power and China as this emerging one, and the rivalry which could spill over into conflict. So we're at the beginning of a new era in international politics.